Good evening. Welcome to Mary Washington Healthcare's monthly Career Conversation Facebook Live event. My name is Darla Burton, and I am the Director of Associate and Physician Recruitment. We are so glad you have joined us this evening. Tonight, we will be discussing Mary Washington Healthcare's journey to becoming a high-reliability organization. Our discussion leaders are two of our champions who are leading the way. Dr. Rebecca Bigany is our Executive Vice President and Chief Medical Officer. She is an internal medicine, hospice, and palliative physician with a master's in medical ethics. In 1983, she came to our region where she has served our community in private practice as well as at Mary Washington Healthcare ever since. Devin Fedor joined Mary Washington Healthcare in 2013 and currently serves as the Director of Learning and Organizational Development for the system. With a passion for connecting education and talent in new and meaningful ways, Devin has provided consultative feedback in leadership development, talent review, career development, and employee engagement. Please join us in the conversation by submitting your questions on our Facebook during the event. We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the event. However, if for some reason we aren't able to address your question specifically, someone from our recruitment team will follow up with you tomorrow. Welcome, ladies. Dr. Bigany?
Thank you, Darla, and welcome to Facebook Live. Tonight we're going to talk about high reliability organizations and Mary Washington Healthcare's journey to become a high reliability organization. I'll tell you about what that means and why I'm excited about it, but I want to start by telling you two stories. And these are stories about patient safety. The first story is about a little boy named Sebastian Ferraro, who was a 3-year-old in Florida. He was an amazing kid, spoke 3 languages, was absolutely happy, wonderful, but he was very small for his age, and his family were advised that he should have an arginine study to see if he might have a growth hormone deficiency. When they went to the infusion center, his mother questioned when she saw that there were 2 vials to be given to her little 12.5-kilogram child and said, "Isn't that an awfully large dose?" And the staff there said, "No, we checked it." And they started the infusion, and pretty soon Sebastian started screaming, yelling that "my head is on fire." His father asked, "Is something wrong? Should we stop the infusion?" And the nursing staff said, "No, it's okay, that's normal." So he finished his infusion and went home, and that night became very ill. He was brought to the hospital where he became sicker and died. It turned out that Sebastian had been given 10 times the dose of medication that he was supposed to receive, which caused brain swelling and caused his death. The second story I'm going to tell you happened here at Mary Washington, and it happened just last week. We had a nurse in our neonatal intensive care unit who had a medication that she needed to give to a premature baby. She went to the drawer to get the medicine, and something seemed a little bit off to her. It looked a little bit different than what she thought this medicine usually looked at, so she double-checked the medication and realized that the wrong concentration had been sent. She contacted the pharmacy, who corrected the error, and the baby was given the right medication and not harmed. So these two stories have some messages for us. The first one is that harm in healthcare systems is always a tragedy, always a disaster. The second is that it happens. People make mistakes. And while what happened to Sebastian Ferraro did not happen at Mary Washington Healthcare, medical mistakes can happen anywhere, and they are devastating for the people who commit them. Just as Sebastian's family were devastated, I can guarantee you the nurses involved in that incident remember it to this day and still suffer for the harm that they caused. The third lesson is that tools can help, that double checking, that having that index of suspicion, that wanting to make extra sure can actually make things safer. And then the final message, which I think is kind of interesting, is that if there's not harm, it's not news. So you can Google Sebastian Ferraro. You can't Google our NICU nurse, because the fact that this premature baby is alive and doing well is not news. So we know that medical errors happen in healthcare. We know that people are harmed and people die in this country, thousands of people as a result of medical errors every year. And at Mary Washington Healthcare, we've decided that that is not okay with us. So to that end, we have started on a journey to become a highly reliable healthcare system. When people come to a hospital for medical care, they want three things. And our CEO, Mike McDermott, is fond of saying, people come here and what they're saying to us is, don't hurt me, heal me, and be nice to me. But the very first of those is, don't hurt me, don't harm me. High reliability organizing started in industries like nuclear energy and aviation, where if you make a mistake, you can kill people. And medicine is an industry like that too. So the concept is that high reliability is consistently and systematically doing the right thing in the right way so that you never commit harm. There are a lot of tools and techniques that can be used. Every day at Mary Washington Hospital and at Stafford Hospital, we have a mandatory safety huddle where we go over every safety event and every near miss, something that could have been a safety event, but we caught it at each hospital, and that's where I heard the story about that NICU nurse. We are teaching our staff about looking forward, thinking about what could go wrong in advance and trying to fix it, looking at our processes and our procedures, saying, are we doing this the right way? Is this the safest, best way it can be done? What can we build in to make it difficult or impossible to have an error? We want to have a just culture where we're fair. We hold people accountable for what they do, but we don't punish people for human error, because human error often comes from problems in the system, and by detecting human error, that's our chance to get better and prevent further harm down the road. And if we do make a mistake, we need to be resilient. We have to bounce back and keep taking care of people. And finally, we need to defer to the person who has the information, to the person who's the expert. And that may not be the doctor. It may not be the person at the top of the hierarchy. It may be the patient or their family or the person cleaning the room. We also know that this is for everybody. It's not just for doctors and nurses at the bedside. So yes, it's very important that nurses do the right things and don't hurt people. But you know, our housekeepers who make sure that our floors aren't wet and people won't slip. Our food service people who make sure they deliver the right tray to the right room so you don't get something you're allergic to or a texture that you can't eat. Our human resources people who do good background checks and make sure our associates are qualified and make sure our associates are treated fairly. So what we're looking at Mary Washington Healthcare is that we need more associates who believe in what I'm talking about, who believe in being the best we can be, who believe in never harming people, who believe in creating a culture where we look ahead, try to look for error that can happen, and keep it from happening. We want to communicate, we want to collaborate, we want to empower people, and we want to have a culture that catches not only things that have happened, but things that could have happened so that we can get better. We're excited about this journey, and it involves all our associates and all of our medical staff. One part of it is a lot of training and a lot of culture change, and I'm going to let Devin tell you about that.
Thank you, Dr. Bigany, and thank you for joining us tonight. One of the things that struck me since we started this journey to high reliability really is this idea that humans make mistakes. No one's perfect, no person, no organization. And having not spent my whole career in healthcare as Dr. Bigany has, when you think about the consequences of mistakes in healthcare, the stakes are much higher. And I think that's why it's so important that we continue on this journey, and it is everyone. We're all in. So a lot of the work that we've been doing is involving our associates, our physicians, the rest of our medical staff, our contractors, our leaders in the organization to figure out what are the things that are working well, what are the things that we need to change and continue to improve on. And a lot of that initially involves looking at what's happened in our organization in the last couple of years. So assessing the events that have taken place, looking at our policies, our procedures, and then also looking at those tools, just as you said, that can make a big difference in how this happens moving forward. So currently, we're doing a lot of training. We've started with training our leaders. We know that they're the carriers of our culture. We know that they have a huge impact on how our patients are taken care of and how our associates feel every single day. We actually just started a train the trainer session and attended that all day today. We have over 40 of our associates that range from executives to our managers to frontline associates, whether they're clinical or non-clinical, and even some of our physicians that are going to be teaching these error prevention and safety and reliability tools and behaviors to every single person that works in our health system. Because it's not just about preventing harm, it's about how we work together, how we treat each other, how we interact every single day. and making sure that we know how we can share those great stories. A lot of this is about communication, and just like the stories you shared in the very beginning, we have tons of our own stories of near misses and good catches, and we want to figure out how to create that learning culture in our organization. So we're really excited to be on this journey. We also know that it's a lot of hard work, and it's a big investment that we're making not only in our organization, but also in our associates to create that kind of culture that we're looking for.
All right, so we do have a question from our viewers. So how do our associates get involved in making MWHC safe for our patients and our community?
I think what Devin said is key. We need to look around us every day and say, what is there that could have caused harm? And then we need to share and report that and work together to see how we can make it better. If we do make mistakes or we do have bad outcomes, we need to understand that that's because we are people. And we need to share those so that we can look at it and say, if you as an individual made this mistake, why did that happen? Were you distracted? Have we not adequately trained you? Or was it something in our system? Our communication system wasn't good enough. Someone else made an error and we didn't have processes in place to catch that before it got to you. So I think that understanding that we all want to know, we all want to learn so we can support each other and get better.
I think we're also asking our associates too. We recently had a contest to figure out how can we do an even better job and make it as easy as we possibly can to get those stories of good catches, near misses. How can we report things in the moment that could be potential safety events, and not just in clinical areas. It could be something as simple as water is spilled in our lobby and we want to make sure that none of our guests and none of our associates fall. So we're putting those mechanisms in place and really listening to our associates and their suggestions on how would it be as easy as possible for them to do that.
We have another question. So can you talk more about the safety huddle and what its purpose?
Sure. The safety huddle is a 15 to 20 minute meeting in the morning led by an organizational leader to talk about any safety events that have occurred in the last 24 hours, anything we need to look out for that may be at risk of happening today. For example, we have 2 patients with the same last name and similar first names on the same nursing unit, need to be aware so that we're extra careful with their identification. Or perhaps there's a drug shortage coming along we need to make people aware of. And then follow up on previous events that we have investigated. We tell a story about something that's happened for safety, and then we do a round robin among all the departments about whether they have had any events in the last 24 hours. That way we all get to hear about what's going on. We all get to know if that could happen on our unit, what we too can do to make things safer. And we feel like that transparency and that talking about these things is our best chance to prevent harming people.
Excellent. How are the good catches being celebrated?
That's a great question. We were actually just talking about some of them today in the training. We've talked about ways of sharing stories, especially at all of our meetings. So one of the things that we're doing as part of our high reliability journey is starting every single meeting that we have with a safety or reliability story. So that's one great opportunity to celebrate any of the good catches. And this is not just leaders telling stories, it's having our associates bring these stories, talk about what their colleagues are doing. We certainly have lots of recognition programs that are in place that can celebrate good catches as well as all of the good things that our associates do. So we can have associates recognize each other, certainly leaders recognize associates, but I think the safety stories are one new way that we're bringing that to the organization.
And we're actually having a contest among the departments to say which department can come up with the most safety suggestions or good catches between now and the end of the year. And we will reward that department with a prize, which will likely be a meal or something for the department. But we really want people to start looking around them. I turned one in yesterday. I was at a meeting and we had a phone that was connected for people who called in, and when I got to leave the meeting, I almost fell over the phone cord. So I suggested all our meeting rooms with phone cords, they need to be long enough that you don't have them up in the air or an inch or two off the floor. They need to be taped to the floor, and they need to be long enough. Simply walking around through your day and identifying, hey, somebody could get hurt with that, whether it's a patient, an associate, a visitor, identifying those things.
Great. Would love to hear both Dr. Bigany's and Devin's thoughts on current trends in the leadership and organizational development realm. What is the best lesson you've learned in L&OD, and how can we apply it to MWHC's journey to becoming a high reliability organization?
I think for healthcare in particular, the theme has certainly changed. And when we think about growing our leaders, growing our associates, it's to continue to know more about our industry, know how things are changing, be able to keep up with the times. And I think that high reliability is the perfect combination of all of those things. It really teaches us to have more situational awareness, to build the kind of environment where our leaders are creating great experiences for our associates, and our associates are able to do the best that they can in a system that sets them up to be successful. So I think in terms of lessons learned, I learn something new every single day. It's been really fascinating listening, especially to our clinicians through this high reliability process, to hear all of the good catches and all of the things that are on their minds. So I think when we think about learning and development in particular, it's always top of mind with making sure that we're creating an engaging environment for our associates, and our patients feel that when we know that we have a great place to work, and that's also a great place to receive care.
And to me, one of the most exciting and interesting lessons is that while we are talking about high reliability in terms of safety, especially patient safety, but also safety for everybody, it actually starts us in what's called the virtuous cycle, and that is, if we can use these principles to become safer, that's going to drive us to have higher quality. And if we are as safe and as high quality as we can possibly be, that's going to drive our patient engagement and make our patients more satisfied to be here. And if we have all three of those things, that's going to drive growth and finance. So you can't do it the other way around. You can't start trying to work with growth and finance and think somehow that you'll get to patient experience and quality and safety, but you can go the other way around. The other big message that I've gotten that I think is great is what I said earlier, that we are all caregivers. Just because we're not at the bedside, healthcare is our business, and taking care of people, meeting people's needs, keeping people safe, that's what we do, no matter what part of the organization we're in. So I think, again, making this message relevant to everybody, that also helps us feel, I think, more like we all are a team and make us recognize we all have important roles in this journey.
So can you talk about the conversation where you mentioned just culture? Expand on that a little bit for us.
Sure. So when we think about just culture, especially looking at the type of area that I work in particular, and I'm sure Dr. Beatty can speak to this more from a medical perspective, a lot of that has to do with how do we handle things that go right and things that go wrong. So it's how do we create an environment where our associates feel very, very comfortable bringing up things that are good catches, are near misses, or if they make a mistake, do they feel like it's the type of environment where they can report that and we can learn from it? So as Dr. Bigany mentioned early on tonight, it's really about having a non-punitive environment, which doesn't mean there aren't consequences for things that happen intentionally, certainly, but it's more so the focus on how do we get better? How do we continue to learn from every single thing that happens? And how do we make sure that people are reporting those things? Because that's the only way that we can continue to improve.
And I think it's looking at something that happens or something that someone does and thinking about what did they do and why did they do it. So if we have someone who is negligent or deliberately trying to commit harm, someone who takes narcotics for personal use or who comes to work impaired, we will try to help that person if they have a problem, but there will be disciplinary action because that's not acceptable. If we have a person who does something that doesn't follow the rules and therefore is risky, they don't follow the policies and procedures, we need to find out why they did that. Did they do that because they thought this would be a shortcut and they could perhaps save some time or work, in which case we need to counsel them, make sure they understand that that's not okay? Or did they do it because our policy's not workable, or it wasn't available, or they didn't fully understand it, or we didn't give them the tools and equipment they needed to do it, in which case we need to fix that? But if somebody just makes a mistake, because as Devin said, we're people and we just make mistakes, then we need to look at, first of all, consoling that person, recognizing their humanity, like the rest of us, and then talking about what in our system allowed that to happen and what could we put in our system so that the next time we can keep that from happening. So the idea that we're all on the same side and that we don't punish honest human mistakes, but we do hold people accountable for truly dangerous or negligent behavior.
Where do I report potential hazards? Does someone follow up and make sure there is a correction to the potential hazard?
Yes. In fact, the contest that Devin mentioned, we added a couple of simple new tools for easy hazard reporting. We've always had something called the Safe Report, which all our associates can get to either through our website or on their units, in which you can put in specific information about a safety event, which our quality and safety team analyzes. And in fact, those reports are the reports they used to create those morning safety huddle, at least to start the conversation. We also recently have added a phone number. For internally, it is 1-SAFE for any of our associates to just pick up the phone and say, I have a situation that is potentially unsafe, or that I want to report, or something that happened, or something that almost happened. And then we similarly have an email, safety@mwhc.com. With the email, you will get an immediate response, because I did that today with my safety issue. You get an immediate response from quality and safety that says, thank you, we got it, we're looking into it. We keep a grid of all of those events and follow through, make sure that we've gotten all the information investigated and put any necessary corrective action plans in place. So every one of those reports is taken seriously.
I think, too, it's also important to note, we've talked a lot about patient safety and certainly reporting those things. We're also looking at associate safety as well, because we work in a dangerous environment in healthcare. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in a split second. So we have reporting mechanisms in place that are very similar, and you can even use the same path to report associate injuries or potential for associate harm. So we want to make sure that we're covering both.
One of our associates commented that they appreciate you emphasizing that everyone makes a difference, that it's not just our clinical staff, it's every single person within the health system, and that we all have a voice. So that's awesome.
And then we all need to feel free and empowered to speak up too. We need to decrease the power distance in our hierarchy, so every single person who has a concern feels comfortable speaking up about that concern.
I think that's one of the great things about our high reliability journey that we've seen already. There's so many people that are passionate about it. When they've been involved in conversations or even just heard little things about it, they really think this is a great thing for us, and they're completely on board. So I think it's going to open everyone's eyes, not just in the clinical world, but people that work in corporate or support functions, on how, even if you're not directly interacting with patients every day, you can contribute to safety and having reliable outcomes in our health system.
So we have another question. How are we including physicians on this journey with us?
So high reliability training is going to be mandatory for all of our medical staff. Some of our medical staff will be participating in training along with our associates. Some of our medical staff, particularly our non-employed physicians in the community, will be doing a dedicated session for physician training. But everybody is going to be required as part of being either working here either as an associate or as a member of our medical staff to have training in the principles of high reliability and to be held to and expect to follow the behaviors.
And we do have several physicians, and there are physicians that are in leadership roles and in other roles in the organization that are going to serve as trainers, which I think will really help to connect our medical staff through this process.
This has been a great conversation with lots of conversation in the chat, and I appreciate that. As you look at opportunities with Mary Washington Healthcare, I do hope you'll check out our career page at MWHCcareers.com, where we post all of our open positions and have our upcoming events listed there as well. We'd love to have you check out opportunities at Mary Washington Healthcare. Dr. Bigany and Devin, thank you for a great evening of conversation. Thank you for all who have turned in to hear the exciting things that are happening as we journey down our the road to a high reliability organization at Mary Washington Healthcare. Tune in next month when Dr. Mary Jane Bowles joins us to discuss our RN New Grad Residency Program and hear from our alumni from some of the previous years about their successes and how they've continued to grow since their journey began as a new grad. The conversation will take place on the second Tuesday of December, so join us on December 12th at 8:30 p.m. at this location. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, Dr. Bigany and Devin, and have a great evening.
Thank you.